how exactly do we go and put ourselves in a position to where we're powerful enough to overthrow those in charge? Well, I hate to break it to you, but we're not powerful enough to overthrow the people in charge yet. There's been an attack on the family. And in the Renaissance times, the families became so powerful that I think about this in COVID. Let's go back for a second. In COVID, you would have, during the lockdowns, you would have a loved one who's dying in the hospital. And you weren't allowed to go visit them because of some sort of regulation. And all the families just basically had to suck it up and go along with that and say, yep, we're just going to let my grandma or my grandpa die in the hospital alone. Well, how did that end up happening? Is it because your family isn't powerful enough to overthrow the hospital and say, oh, hell no, you're not going to do that. We're going into that hospital and we're going to be by her side when she's dying. But because the family is so weak, because the families are so fragmented, there's no families that are big enough and strong enough to overthrow the bad guys. And so this is idea number 5, the family business. And I talked about this briefly in the introduction about the difference between American viewpoint on having children and the immigrant viewpoint on having children, is that the immigrants say, hey, look, if we have lots of children, our business will be so much stronger. And then the American says, oh my goodness, if we have so many children, this will be so much more expensive. Children were they were a blessing from God. You would increase your wealth through your children. Now it's like, let's go have our children. Let's send them off to college, have somebody else educate them, and then we're going to have them move out of our house, and then they're going to go be working a totally different field, a totally different job, disconnected from us in a different part of the world or a different part of the country. This was not the Renaissance idea. The Renaissance's idea is we're going to educate them ourselves. We're going to teach them the ideas that worked for us, and yeah, we're going to incorporate some new ideas, but most importantly, we're going to focus on what already works. We're going to pass down to them a tradition, and we're also going to pass down to them the family business. And we're going to make sure that they're trained and brought up in how to run that business. And so from a very early age, the first things they're learning is all applicable to the business they're going to be working in. And sometimes people would go out and they would branch off and do different things. I mean, the Medici family was a perfect example of this. They started off as wool merchants and they ended up as bankers. And they did lots of other things too. But so it wasn't like you were expected to just stay in this one particular business for eternity. That wasn't the point. But the point was you wanted to make sure that your children are being brought up in the family business. Like I said before, you had this double entry bookkeeping that really enabled the bankers to, have a bigger control of their assets. And so families were starting to apply these new financial concepts to their lives, where it's like we're like gathering all of our resources together. We're gathering all of our efforts and our energies and our monies together, all of our assets, and we're focusing on, we have a meticulous attention to our financial health, our assets, our liabilities, our equity, our revenue, our expenses, all of that. And the whole family was expected to contribute to the financial health of the family as a whole. That's how these families became so powerful. That's why nobody could tell them what to do. If you have a system or a town or a civilization where every single family in it is strong and independent, it's a lot harder for someone to come in and start telling everybody what to do. Because if it's not good for one of those families, they're going to stand up and say, hey, it's not good for them. And even if all the other families were to come attack them, it's going to be a bloody battle. It's going to be a hard war. So you can't necessarily, if the stronger the families are, the stronger the family units are, the harder it is to take them out and for some tyrant to come in and take control. So this is extremely important. They all realize that. Somehow we just don't get that today. And that's so important. Like if there's one thing out of all of this, I think this may be the most important point of all of this. The most important idea from the whole entire Renaissance mindset is strengthen your family. Like build a family business. There was an inherent duty and loyalty and obligation to preserve and to grow your family business. You were expected of that. And if you didn't do that, you were out. And so they would do, like I said, they had these arranged marriages where they would go and they would carefully calculate, who are my children going to be married to? And they would start looking for spouses from them as soon as their children were born, sometimes even before their children were born. And what do we do today? It's like, oh, I don't want to get involved with who they're going to be married to. They're just going to fall in love with whoever they're going to fall in love with. And maybe it'll be good for us. Maybe it won't. Maybe they'll fall in love with somebody else and they'll take them somewhere else all the way across the country and I'll never see them again. That was like unheard of back then. I mean, that happened where like they would fall in love with, but a family advocating for that, where the mother and father are like, yeah, we're just going to let them marry whoever they cross. Absolutely not. Arranged marriages were extremely important. This is an idea that they brought back. I mean, arranged marriages, a lot of these ideas didn't originate in the Renaissance, and the arranged marriage isn't necessarily a Renaissance idea, but it's something that was still utilized in the Renaissance times that's been forgotten today. So that's just so important. You have to have your obligation to your family. You have to have your loyalty. You have to have this sense of inherent duty to your family name. You have to preserve what they had going on, preserve your heritage, preserve your tradition, and also grow it. They would, and you would constantly be bringing ideas into the family. The Medici, they established this Platonic Academy, and their children would grow up learning these things. And they would have other people come in too. Like a homeschool was the norm. They would have their home libraries. Every family was expected to have a home library where you could go teach your children, look, this is the books your father read, and this is the books that the sons will read too. This is the traditions that the mother would hold, and this is the traditions that the daughters are expected to uphold too. Like there was an extremely strong patriarchy and matriarchy that was in effect, and this was not something that was seen as like a limitation. Although yes, it did drastically limit your possibilities of what you were able to do as far as like, man, I was born into a wool merchant and I want to go be a guitar player. It's like, well, too bad. Do guitar playing in your free time, but your primary obligation is to make our wool business thrive. So find a way to incorporate your guitar playing into all of that, or you're out. Go stand on the corner and sing songs about how awesome our wool is. Because if we're not selling wool, we're not going to be able to afford your guitar lessons anyways. And so there was this, you sacrificed a little bit of your own personal autonomy for the greater good of the family. And this is something that, this is a concept that the East, as far as I know, is really still upholding. You have, like in the East, especially in China, you're expected to sacrifice a lot of your freedom and autonomy for the good of the state, for the good of the city and the country. Now, I'm not advocating for a reduction of freedom in America at all. That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm just saying, like, there's ideas over there that we've totally forgotten, that we've discarded, and we've thrown so far away from us that we've almost thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And it's like, there's a usefulness to these ideas. These ideas in themselves aren't inherently bad or inherently evil. There's a utility to that. And so we should be trying to find ways to incorporate this into our lives today. Another way that they built wealth in their families was through art patronage. They were able to turn their family into a narrative, and they would have your own family story. Like we were talking about in the earlier section about what was it Cicero who was saying, who was that? Let me see. Was that Cicero? Oh yeah, to be ignorant of what occurred before you were born is to remain always a child. This is something that the families would invest a lot into. They would be like, we need to tell our family history. Your children will grow up knowing their ancestors. I mean, how far can you trace back your lineage? How far can you trace back your ancestors? And luckily, on my father's side, there is a pretty deep family history. And so, but on all the other sides, it's really hard to trace back. And it's just like a generation or two and it's gone. It's like, we don't even know where we came from. We don't know what we were good at. We don't know. How is that good for you? You want to know. And so maybe you're one of the majority of people who, if you are let's start off with this. If you are in the person who's in your family, who is born to a family who has a lot of like family history, then good for you. Keep it up. Don't let that die out. But the majority of people aren't like that. So if you're one of those people who have you only have a little tiny blip of family history, don't let that blip die. Like, don't let that die with you. Preserve your family history, write it down, give your children a story, give them a sense of purpose and a sense of place. Look, here is where you came from. And we don't know how far back that goes, but I at least have preserved it up to here. and tell this to your children too. Let's start writing this down. And so that was a huge part. So through this art patronage, they were able to like paint family portraits, because they didn't have family photos and all of that, but they were able to do it through paintings. And they were able to put symbols, and they had family crests that they would put everywhere, family narratives, family, like ours is the symbol of the oak tree or the apple. So in my house, I have oak leaves and stuff peppered throughout the little various rooms of the house, and my family symbol up throughout. Like, you want to have those reminders of like, this is who you are, this is where you come from, and this is something that you're trying to bring a good name to. Like, you want to bring honor to your family. Do you want to bring honor to your family, or do you want to bring dishonor to your family? To the Renaissance, that was of the utmost important. They would have networks and delegation too to different areas. Like I said, we expect to send our family out into different areas of distant lands in America. It's like, just let your children go with wherever they want to go. Let them do whatever career they want to do. The Renaissance would send their family out to distant lands, but they were act as like, this is a new hub. This is the nexus point. You are a branch, and you are a link in the network. And so the Medici family, what they did is they went out, and all of the major cities, like, London and, I'm drawing a total blank of all different Renaissance cities. But anyways, they would send out members of their family to all these distant cities, and then they would establish a bank in that city, or establish a wool trade in that city, and say, look, now we're going to have this network where everything comes back to the center. Everything comes back to the center. We're branching out farther and farther, but it still all returns to the center, connects the center. They would delegate the task to these family members. And so they would be able to expand their family, expand deep into the map, deep into the recesses of all different foreign cultures. But meanwhile, all bringing back wealth to the center and distributing that. And you can't do this without strong leaders. They had to have strong leaders. So you have leaders like Cosimo de' Medici, Lorenzo de' Medici. I mean, these guys were titans of family leaders. Like, there's lots of books that were written about what they did. I mean, Cosimo de' Medici, he spent over $500 million on helping build Florence. Lorenzo de' Medici, he probably spent around the same. I mean, they didn't just invest into their family, but they invested into their family name and their reputation and their contribution to their city, their contribution to their community as a whole. And that's why everywhere you go in Florence, you see that Medici emblem everywhere. It's like they were the poster child of how to build a family properly and how to sustain generational wealth and how to keep it growing. I mean, it was like something like 7 generations or something that they were able to just keep getting richer and richer and richer. It's absolutely unbelievable. And because they had that civic duty that we keep going back to, that civic duty, it wasn't just like what's good for our family. They deeply tied their family into Florence. If you talk to anybody who lives in Florence, you can't think of Florence without thinking of the Medici. Like, they built Florence. All of the art, that Platonic Academy that the Medici built, think of all the artists who went through there. Botticelli, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, all of these people, they trained under the Medici. The Medici had all of the artists come there. They basically paid. They wanted everybody to become better through them. And so their family, every aspect of their family could possibly get involved with, they said, let's get involved with this. If we could find a way to improve what's happening around us, let's have our family get involved with this. So they had a civic duty to everything around them. And they had an extreme physical resilience through the training that they would put themselves through. They wanted to be independent and autonomous, but at the same time deeply connected to all the world's networks. So they would have these like villas with all of these servants and all these multiple generations living, and and they would basically live outside in their own little farmland, but they would utilize the cities to build wealth. But then they would also kind of like disconnect themselves. And this really goes into our next point, number 6, is like the independence and the autonomy. And we'll get much more deeper into like what that meant, having both the rural and the city life, like the farm world and the city world. It wasn't like an either or. That wasn't the option. You had to have both. And in today's world, we're like, I want to move out of the city and go into the farm. We're like, I live on a small town. I want to go to the city and make it big. That was stupid. Both of those ideas are stupid. You want to be able to have the farm, and you also want to be able to use the city for commerce. You have to have both. And that's the only way you're actually going to have true independence and autonomy. And you're going to be able to pass down true generational wealth. That was the only way they did it then, and that's the only way it's going to happen now. And we'll get much more into that with the next section, but I just had to talk about that a little bit right now. There's one more story that I want to end on with the family business about how important it was to have strong leaders, both with your knowledge, but also they had a physical resilience, they underwent physical training. Like the young men were trained in combat, like hand-to-hand combat. Like you were expected to understand warfare. This was like something that we just expect the police to take care of everything for us now. We expect all the emergency services and the hospitals and all of that just to take care of us. This was not the case. Like you want family doctors. Like you want people who are in your family who understand the indigenous land around you, how to pull medicine from your backyard. You want people who are able to protect you, especially if you're living out on a farm. What do you do? Call the police and wait an hour for them to show up? No. Bad guy comes on your property. You want to be able to take them out right away. So there's a story that I want to tell about the family business, about one family member of the Medici in particular, Lorenzo de' Medici, and it's the Pazzi conspiracy. There was a rival family the Pazzi family, who was another banking family in Florence, and they were always trying to overthrow the Medici because they really understood like the Medici are gaining more and more power, and the Pazzi were kind of losing power, and they just were not cool with that. And so there was this conspiracy where they got together with a couple other people who were beefing with the Medici at the time, and they said, let's go and kill Lorenzo and his brother Giuliano, and then we'll take over the city and drive the Medici from Florence. And they got a lot of people in on this. They bribed a lot of people to keep their mouths shut. And so the plan was on Easter Sunday at High Mass in the Florence Cathedral, when the priest raises the Eucharist, that will be the symbol, to jump on the Medici brothers and stab them to death and shank them. And since they're the two leaders of the family, the rest of the family will, you strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. That was the goal. You have to take out those leaders. And this is how important it is to have a strong leader. This really explains all of the stuff we talked about before, culminates in this story right here. And it wasn't unless he was so learned and so well trained and so strong in so many different areas that if they would have succeeded in taking the Medici out, history would just look different as a whole. But they ended up killing Giuliano. They stabbed, and the knife went right through his skull. They said almost split his head in half. Brutal murder. Lorenzo, though, he was able to dodge the knife attack when they tried to stick it in the back of his neck. He knife fought like 5 people and stabbed a couple of them and made it out. I mean, can you imagine, like, you're getting attacked, you don't know who all is against you, surprise attack, you will just witness your brother almost get his head taken off with a knife, and you have enough physical training and enough bravery and courage to where you fight these people. He stabs a couple of them and he makes his way out. So he's getting ready to go and like figure out what to do next, make it into hiding, figure out like who all did this, who did this attack. Meanwhile, in the town center, all of these conspirators are coming together and they're starting to gather all the public together. Everyone's like, oh my goodness, the Medici are dead. And they think Lorenzo is dead at this time too. And they said, look, where's a new leadership in town? It's the Pazzi now. We are the new people in charge. The Medici are dead. They're basically done for. And so all of Lorenzo's insiders and all of his best friends are saying, look, you got to get the hell out of Florence. You can't be here anymore. Like, they've taken over the city. Like, you're done for. Your family's done for. Just give up and go. And he said, no, the people have to see I'm alive. So he already used his physical prowess, his physical training to get him out of this situation. He wasn't relying on the guards or the police or anything like that. He just relied on his own training. And so he said, you know what? I'm going to take this a step farther. I'm not going to retreat. I'm going to go even harder. He goes down to the city center when everybody is there, and he knows like all of his enemies are right there in the city center and they're waiting. If he shows up, they're going to hang him on the spot. And he goes there and he stands up on a box in front of everybody and he says, look, who did you thrive under? And this goes back to the Popolo Minuto idea, the little people. How much money did I give to you? Aren't all of your businesses thriving because of me? These people are just jealous. They're trying to strengthen themselves at the expense of you, and they're using me as a target. They're attacking me, but what they're really doing is that they're attacking you too. And through all of his practice with his speech and his rhetoric and his public speaking, he was able to win the hearts over the entire city. The angry mob was about ready to hang him from the town hall, and they all said, "Yeah, you know what? You were right. We were all thriving under you. And so they went and gathered up all of his conspirators, and they hung hung them instead. And that basically like solidified Lorenzo's position and as the leader of Florence. And it's like, you can't take him out now. Like, you know, he's the man. Like, he was willing to risk his life and go back there. It wasn't just his physical prowess. It was his mental, his ability to speak, win over the hearts and minds of people. But even so, it was relied on also all the actions that he had done before. If it wasn't for everything that he had done for all those people, his words would just have fallen on deaf ears. So it was actually by living out all these ideas that he was able to win. And that was really a moment of absolute amazing physical resilience, mental resilience, independence, autonomy, and just true, strong leadership. And that is the type of leaders that families should have today. Every man in every family every leader of every family should read the story of the Pazzi conspiracy, and the men should be like taking notes. Here's what to do and what not to do, because that is one of the best examples of a man just by sheer will and training and just meticulous attention to every single aspect of life, taking life seriously, not becoming a victim of your circumstance, being able to be a strong leader for your family. So here I'm going to end this section. I know this is a much longer section than the rest, but this is a very important section. We're going to end the section of the family business with a quote from Plato. The citizen must strive to keep the family's estate intact for his children, neither dividing it too thinly nor neglecting its care, for the household is the root of the city's stability. So Plato really understood this. If you want a strong city, you need strong households. And think about what's happening in America today. I think that's one of the reasons why we're so weak. Yes, we're strong in lots of ways, but we're weak in lots of ways too. How do we strengthen our little town? How do we strengthen our state? And then how do we strengthen our country? We got to have strong households. The household is a microcosm of the government. This is, I mean, if we go back to Genesis, like this is the ideal form of government is a man and a woman controlling a household, and then taking care of the garden around them, taking care of the land around them. They each have specific roles to play. The man has a specific role to play and the woman has a specific role to play, because that's the root of the city's stability. If you get rid of that, the city's just going to be fragmenting in all these different ways. I see it happening in my hometown. Weak families. There'll never be a time where it'll come and bite you in the ass to have a strong family. There's no downside to that. It's always better to have a strong family.